through the president's remarks. Senator, you're, the diplomatic expert and very schooled in what politicians say and what they mean. But I was struck mostly by the president's response on Russia possibly using chemical weapons.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it would be measured. What do you think?
Yeah, I was too. But remember, this is the same president who said, well, it depends on whether it's a minor incursion or not. Well, that'll determine how we respond. Remember, he was the vice president when Barack Obama drew a red line about chemical weapons in Syria, and then when they crossed the red line, did nothing about it. He was the vice president when the last time Ukraine had a problem and it had a skirmish that resulted in yielding some land. They sent blankets. This is the problem with him, is that he talks tough, but his policies are always late. Even when he's done the right thing in this situation, it's been late. Now, I thought by and large it was a pretty good news conference up until the end, when I'm sure his entire communications team was going, please don't take one more question.
Right.
When he said that the point of sanctions is not to deter Vladimir Putin, I'm going, well, what the hell is the point of sanctions if it's not to deter Vladimir Putin? Again, this goes back to why, at the very beginning, when he refused to do preemptive sanctions to deter Vladimir Putin, he said, no, let's wait until they invade. Well, who does it?
Yeah,
we should be trying to avoid it.
That was a bit surprising, too, but without, maybe I'm being a dog with a bone here on the chemical weapons thing. That's something where you can't just be half measured on that. I was going to say have something else, but that's like being a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're either using chemical weapons or you're not, and you're gauging your potential response. Maybe this was just a head fake to keep Vladimir Putin guessing. I have no idea. But by saying that the response would be proportionate to the use and how much you use those chemical weapons, could be sending a very dangerous signal. I mean, it might galvanize Vladimir Putin to have a limited attack on population strongholds with chemical weapons. And if it didn't have a far more reaching impact, the response might be very, very measured as well. That's a little weird.
It's a little bit weird. It's very weird, and it's irresponsible, quite honestly, Neil. He says he's the leader, and he gave this long diatribe about the leader, and I want to lead. He's been leading from behind Boris Johnson this entire time. Basically, the United Kingdom has become the leader, and by the way, that maybe is okay. They are in the European continent. Obviously, they're the leaders there, and maybe that's okay. But to have these sort of timid responses, these measured responses to very serious questions, I think is exactly the problem. And by the way, this nonsense at the end again about re-election and holding the House and the Senate, I think it demonstrates that he's really more focused on political outcomes than he is on doing the right thing. I thought he was arguing with himself, quite honestly.
Yeah, I don't know how to weigh the political stuff, but he did seem to hint that when he wanted to meet with Ukrainian refugees, again, Senator, this could be just me taking the leap. I might like to make a big production out of what could be nothing, but he did intimate, at least, especially adding after wanting to meet with Ukrainian refugees, that he shouldn't be saying anything more as people would get upset. If he does go to Ukraine, that's very different than ahead of one of these neighboring NATO states like Slovenia and the Czech Republic and Poland going into Kyiv. This would be the president of the United States. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, I don't think he should go into Ukraine, certainly not into Kyiv, at least not at this point. I think his security is of paramount importance. But he could go to Poland and meet with Ukrainian refugees, and I frankly think that would be one of the most noble things he could do. I'd like to see him do it. Let's not forget, former Vice President Pence has already done that. He went to Ukraine, met with refugees, served meals to refugees. I think that sends a great message to the entire region, and it's a message of American compassion, if not American strength.
Senator, real quick while I have you, and I'm so grateful you were so patient to wait through the president's remarks, but how do you feel about continuing to sanction Russia, even when we get past this war, hopefully soon and hopefully without much more bloodshed? Would you still, if Vladimir Putin is in charge of Russia, keep those sanctions going?
Neil, I would, and I think we have to look at several other bad actors around the world. There ought to be a Patriot Premium for doing business with our allies and in the United States. I think a lot of companies that thought Russia was a great investment are regretting that decision now, particularly in the energy field. You talked a lot about food production. Of course, the president rightfully noted that Russia and Ukraine together are the third leading producer of wheat. Well, North Dakota is the #1 producer of spring wheat. We're the #2 producer of oil in the United States. We can do a lot to feed the world, and we ought to do that. But I think we ought to be looking at what I call a Patriot Premium when it comes to investing and sanctions.
Got it. Senator Cramer, thank you.